here's the challenge with this. As I highlighted on the slide, right, the word change. This is a change, and change is difficult, and it's difficult for everyone in different ways. Um, my goal in kind of broaching this subject is a lot of clubs are doing different Zoom meetings or sending out emails to try to explain it. I felt like you all deserved a face-to-face of us trying to kind of unpack what it means, how it impacts us, and what we're planning to do going forward in terms of next steps. And so that's the goal. I'll say this at the beginning, and I'll say it again at the end. The situation, or every family situation, is a little nuanced. The goal today is not necessarily to go into every nuance, but to just kind of unpack it generally, conceptually, so that hopefully you walk away more informed, hopefully a little bit more at ease with the change, but also an understanding of some of the things that we plan to do or the next steps we're going to take to try to help prepare for the tryout process coming in the next 3 months. So let's get rolling here. First thing to highlight is that we did not make this decision, right? This was a U.S. Soccer, all of the governing bodies within U.S. Soccer, which is U.S. Youth, U.S. Club, AYSO, collectively made this decision, right? I'm going to kind of talk through it here in a second. The chart on the right is what the age groupings are going to look like for next year. Basics of the change is that instead of teams being formed January 1st to December 31st, it's now going to be formed August 31st to the following July 31st. That will not have any impact on the current season. So if you're on a whatever U13 team right now, you will continue. It does not change anything for this spring. But when we have tryouts in probably April, May, our teams for 2026 to 2027 will be formed based on these new age groups. I will say this as well before we get to the next slide. This shift to birth year actually happened 10 years ago. I was at a club, I was the director of a club in Illinois when it happened, and so I don't know if I'm a sucker or what, that I have to do it now backwards again and go through it for another club. Anyhow, the decision has been kind of lingering for a couple years, but it was formally announced and is collective across all platforms, so all of youth soccer pretty much is going to this for the next year. On the next slide, you can see kind of some of the rationale for that was given. Now, I would say this as a caveat. You may look at this and go, like, for example, social dynamics, right? Aligning kids in a common grade and trying to more similarly align with an academic grouping, right? That might not be the case for you. Just like some of the benefits that they rolled out 10 years ago to switch to birth year change maybe wasn't a benefit to you and your family then, and maybe it's better now. But I'm just going to kind of roll through these, and these are generalized, but this is the rationale for why the change was made. Social dynamics to maximize enjoyment, so trying to get kids aligned. I would say firsthand, it is difficult. We hear all the time, I'm on, my best friend's on my team in rec, and now you're splitting us up when we go into travel. Like, why can't we continue being on the same team? We're in the same class, we're best buds. Why can't we continue being on the same team, right? And so one of the goals with the change is to help grow the game, right? Grow soccer collectively, increase enjoyment, increase retention within the sport itself. And so the social element is a really important factor for that. Transition into competitive teams at U8, U9 is always tricky, and without, again, getting too granular, we often have players that go from playing 4v4 in U8 to playing 7v7 in travel without a step in between because of the way that they're not aligned. This is going to help aid in that transition all the way through. This is a nuance, trap players is a nuance that maybe none of you have ever considered, but with the current groupings based on birth year, every year at U15, half of the U15 team, or 2/3 or whatever it breaks down, go into high school, and there's a portion that plays 8th grade. And so now their programming is a little bit challenged because we try to scale down for the high school, but now the 8th graders want more, and it creates a challenging dynamic. The same happens on the top end at U19. We have kids currently born August through December that all of a sudden don't have a team because all the rest of their team graduated the year before and they had another year of school, right? And so now this is going to be a little bit cleaner. Again, not for everyone, but for more. Hopefully this simplifies things, right? You're probably hearing this and going, this is anything but simpler. But the goal is, especially if you're new to soccer, that this becomes a little bit of a simpler process. And for us, a better alignment between rec and competitive programming, because our rec program has stayed school year, has stayed this grouping, whereas travel was birth, and now they're going to both be the same. Let's keep moving on here to the next. I included these things because I think it's important to maybe lay the foundation with this idea. So I want to begin with individual club needs, right? I'm going to talk about it more on the next slide as well. Just as there is now, there will continue to be the opportunity for clubs to shift or adjust and make decisions that are best for what they need. So we could combine two age groups, right? There's nothing against that. The challenge is just from our perspective, it's not ideal to have a younger team playing up at a higher age group if they don't have to, right? It's not as ideal developmentally. And so there is some flex that we are going to have, and I'll unpack a couple of those scenarios on the next slide. But generally speaking, the rule is you can never play down, right? So I have had, I don't know, a lot of people over the last 6 years that I've been here that, hey, I was born in December 31st at 11:55 at night. Why can't I just play, right, at the next birth year? Like, sorry, you now are officially probably the youngest person in your birth year, but we can't play you down, even though we probably can make an argument as such. And so there are flex that can be done up, but not down as we try to implement this as a club. I want to highlight this. So if you've never heard the phrase relative age effect, again, I'm not going to give you a whole lecture on what it means and physiological periodization and those kind of things, but I felt like this visual was helpful. And this is essentially the variance of the oldest player within an age grouping and the youngest player. And you would logically go, how is this relevant? The same thing is true, it's just shifting, right? The players born August 1st are older significantly than the player born on July 30th within that age grouping. The challenge is, and I want to highlight this last piece with prioritizing development, and that's exactly why across the board, we are going to try to place all of our players within their actual birthdays grouping, right? So the goal is not that we make super teams, we're not gonna keep the band together and try to keep teams together, because if we have, let's say, a player that was playing on whatever, U11, right? And they were born in October. Now all of a sudden, or November, December, whatever, yes, now they're staying at the same level again. They will stay U11 again for another year, but they will become one of the oldest on this graph instead of if we push them up so they could still play with their former teammates. Now they're not just playing against the same kids they were playing against. They're now playing against kids an additional 3, 4, 5 months older because of how the birth year changes, and I'll talk about that here in a second. So let's jump to the next one. Here's a couple of facets in terms of our perspective with player placement, right? So I already said this, players will be placed in alignment with the new age groupings. Some will repeat their current level, right? It doesn't mean that they're being held back. It doesn't mean that they're playing down. It just means that they're repeating because now what was U11 is different, and so they're playing U11 again, right? Or whatever that age group is. But I want to highlight a couple of these pieces. But before I do, I want to talk through, and I realize you probably can't read the graphic that well, but here's kind of the premise. When we look at development, right? So we talked about the facets that influence player development, but when we look at an individual player, the aspects that we want them to develop within, these are the 4 categories, right? So it's tactical, technical, physical, and psychosocial, right? There's a variety of names for that one as well, mental, social, etc. And I just want to kind of walk through it a little bit from our perspective. So the physical is the most obvious, right? If we don't align them with their actual August 1st to July 31st, there's a physical challenge that exists for most. Maybe not every single one. Maybe there's some kid who is massive and would fit in right perfectly with the older age group. But the way that they could impact a game and grow in confidence physically will be enhanced within their actual age group, right? The second here is I'll jump into technical, right? When we look at technical, it has to be connected to tactical, and that it doesn't matter if I can do a Rabona and 18 million scissors or step overs. It's the game implementation of them, right? Which entails a little bit of the position I'm playing, the confidence that I have, the role that I play within the team. And that's the part that I think is really critical and is the argument that I make to parents consistently is, okay, sure. Could your player make that higher level team, that older team? Could they be 1 through whatever, 18, 15, whatever the roster size? Yeah, maybe. But is the role the same, right? Do they still get to be a leader on the team because they're one of the older players? Do they step in as a vocal individual on the team? Are they going now, do they have an opportunity to go from outside back to center mid and they get more touches on the ball, they get more playing time, they play a different role? Does it enhance their perspective and development of the game tactically because now it's elevated them within their actual age group, right? And so just some of the reasons why, which brings me to the playing up policy. When I first came to the club, we put a policy in place in regards to how a player would be eligible to play up, right? So I'll give a specific example. Let's say that I'll use my son Rory as an example. Rory's 9, he's a 2016. If I wanted him to play at the next older age group, right? First of all, we'd have to consider all these facets where is it actually in his best interest. But what we didn't want is we didn't want it to be like, well, Rory's parent is the director of the club, and so he gets to do it, and somebody else gets to do it because they asked, right? And all of a sudden, we're like making handshake deals, and it's just people advocating for the kid to play up because they think it's better. In my opinion, it's often like a long road, a long chase to nowhere, right? It ends up being over time catching up and being a negative thing. And so what we did was we wrote a policy, and the simple version of it is that in order for a player to be eligible to play up permanently, moved up on the higher level age group or older age group, they would not only have to be the best player or one of the best players in their age group, right? So Rory would not only have to be the best 2016, he would have to be invited. It's not up to the parent. It's up to us in our assessment, invited to the 2015 tryout, and he would have to be assessed in the top 3 of the 2015s, right? Because outside of that, it doesn't make sense for him to go from being one of the best players to being a peripheral player on an older age group just to say that he played on that age group, right? Here's the other facet of that, which comes back to what I said earlier with the train up policy. We try to subsidize in that space. So it's not an all or nothing, right? We could look at Rory and say, okay, he's not that, but he's somewhere in between. And so can we get him some training sessions with the 2015s? So we're recognizing that we need to challenge him a little bit more, but we believe that it's a deficit or would be problematic or not in his best interest to fully move him up an age group. I think the other piece of that, which is just a candid logistical one, is I always struggle with what if again, I'll use Rory, what if I move him up an age, but now I have to cut a true 2015 to make room for a 2016, right? That's a tough place to be when part of our goal is to get as many kids playing and enjoying competitive soccer as possible. And so in the last 5 years, we've had one player that played up, right? And it was for 1 year as kind of a stopgap. Due to needing it developmentally, right? Outside of that, which is what I want to get into with some of these nuances here, and this obviously does not involve every single nuance for every situation, family, whatever. We have had combined age groups on the girls' side, right? Because it's a number situation, especially as they move into 11v11 and we need more players, where we've needed to combine age groups to be able to form a team and offer a team. Is it optimal developmentally? No. But it's better than them not having an opportunity to play. And so we've then, as we've talked about before, adjusted the level competitively and tried to meet their needs still, even though we've combined age groups. One of the challenges, and I'll just be really candid, in the birth year or the shift in age groupings for next year is that it's, especially on the girl side, it's varied, right? There's a couple age groups where for whatever reason, there are not that many girls playing within that new age grouping, and so we anticipate there being a little fluidity on the girls' side so that we can keep teams and form teams, right? So that is a little bit of a nuance. On the oldest side as well, so the 2010 boys will be one of our older boys teams next year. We don't have a 2009 boys team to push down into the 2010s, right? And so there's probably going to be a number of kids that have to play up so that we can form teams, and we're assessing that already now. And then grade alignment, and I'll just say this. We recognize that one of the challenges, and I would say U.S. Soccer was vocal about this as well. U.S. Soccer originally came out, and their the date was September 1st. Then they came back out and said, we actually have recognized that to get the majority of alignment with schools throughout the country, August 1st is the better date, and they adjusted the date. The challenge within Phoenixville in particular is the school district policy is that you can go into the older grade even if you have, I think it's all the way through a date in October, right? And so it's into the fall. And so we are very aware that there's a number of families, we've already spoken to a couple of them, that it's a challenging space because if the goal is for them to play with their grade, their birth date does not align for that to happen, right? And so the goal is for us to try to have individual conversations with those families because the relative age effect is still a thing, right? It's still real for that kid. And so playing at their actual level of their birth is probably an advantage to them if we're just looking singularly at player development. When we look at the overall experience, maybe not, right? And so that's something that we're aware of and we're going to work through as we progress. Let's jump over to the next. I think I have 2 more slides, so just bear with me. 3 more. So the process here, right? So I kind of referenced this already. For the vast majority of players, they'll be assessed and placed based on the new age group. For a limited number of unique scenarios, we'll have a personal conversation. I would just want to clarify a couple things. We want to have conversations. If it's a player that is moving up, we're initiating that conversation, right? So it's not something that you can submit a form online and you get the chance to be considered for your kid to play up, right? We're assessing that as part of our total assessment of the club. However, we recognize that, and I said this at the beginning, I'll say it again, the reality is you are in this room because you care about the experience that your child has, right? That they're your pride and joy. You love watching them play the game. You want them to be successful. We want them to as well, right? We want to partner with you. It's important for us. And so we want to try to approach this with hopefully some empathy and understanding to recognize that the situation may be varied. So we're open to the conversation, but if it's a scenario of them getting invited to play up, again, I would say the numbers are going to be pretty low of a number of kids that are going to be moved in that direction. Let's keep rolling through. Let's jump to the next one. I already said, so I'll just, you don't have to go back, but let me just say relative to that one. A question I've been asked multiple times as we approach this is, will I have the same coach next year? I think the thing to highlight is, again, it's not like, I've only coached the team for 1 year. I'll coach them again next year. So take my 2012s. Right? Do I have to pick which half of the team I like better, right? And I coach that half next year or the other, right? Which 2 of them are in the room, so I won't tell them which side I would pick. But what we're going to try to do is look at the whole picture to say, here's our coaching staff, here's the teams we're forming, here's their needs, here's the skill sets of those coaches. Where does it make sense, right? So for a lot of kids, way higher than usual, you're going to be getting a new coach next year. That's just the way it is, right? But we want to be conscientious of kind of reassessing those placements as we go. Last two slides here. I put this together just to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and be clear about some of the challenges. You maybe have a different challenge that isn't on this list, but I think it's important that you're thinking through some of these things and hopefully having a conversation with your child to say, hey, here's what's coming, right? This is what we anticipate. These are some of the challenges coming, and so that we can try to be as prepared as possible. I'm going to start on the left side, right? So for the player, there's a social element, there's a familial element, there's a familiarity, there's a friendship, right? And now all of a sudden, we may be taking two best friends and moving them to different teams. That's a challenge. We understand that the social part is a really important part of why kids enjoy it, why it's fun, why they play in the first place, and that's a challenge that we're aware of and recognize. Here's another thing, right? And I'll use Rory as an example. Rory's currently on the 2016 black team, right? There's now 2015 young 2015 boys pushing down into the grade that he, or the level that he will be on next year, right? So the current 2015s, if they were born August through December, because Rory is an older 2016, they will be on the same team next year, yeah? There's a very real possibility that a player, could be Rory, could be others, that were on a black team, don't make a black team anymore, because the quality of the players from the older black team or even the older white team, right, push down, and they now have the relative age effect advantage of being however many months older, and that's going to be a challenge, right? So that could be a great opportunity for some of our families where they're at a really strong age group, and which in this example, the 2015 boys white is one of our stronger white teams. And maybe they actually now make a black team because they get to play at their actual grade, right? The opposite could be true where Rory, for example, maybe all of a sudden has older kids that he's playing against, and it shifts, right? And so one of the things I think it's important that we're aware of is that kind of expectation where there's a lot of kids in the club that have been on a black team or a white team for a number of years, and now that's going to change, right? Role position within the team, we've talked about that a little bit already. There's going to be some social dynamics. If you are doing a PhD in sociology, now would be a really interesting observation to see how roles change, leaders change, key voices change within teams. Relationship with a coach, right, that we already talked about. Now all of a sudden you had a great relationship with whoever. Coach Nakeem, Coach Trevor, whoever it is, and now a higher percentage of our teams are getting a new coach. And then just the relative unknown, right? It's a change. You're going into a different experience. And I think one of the things that we've talked about a lot is families coming back because they kind of know what to expect, right? I had a great experience last year with this group of kids, this group of families, this coach. We loved it. Our whole family loved it. We enjoyed the banter on the sideline, whatever. Now all of a sudden, those facets are changing, and it's going to take a little bit of an adjustment in that process, right? We feel confident that we can still offer the same quality of experience, but it's going to be with some different people, and that is a challenge. I put this side just for a little perspective and maybe even a little grace in us as we navigate it, because it's challenging for us as well, right? Again, it's a decision that we did not make. No one called me to cast a vote. And so just a couple things to be conscientious of, right? We're going to try to be empathetic for every scenario. But again, if you just look at that we have 400 competitive kids in the club, that's a lot of parent conversations that we anticipate having over the next couple of months, right? Not saying that all of them are going to talk to us, but that's a challenge. Numbers to form teams. It's always, even in a normal year, there's a little bit of, do we have enough for a third team? Do we have enough for a second team? Where are we at? Can we take the risk? Blah, 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 right? Now that's all even more askew because there's no baseline expectation of what is carrying from this year into next year. We're essentially reassessing the entire player pool, which we do to a degree, but we often enter a tryout, and I'll use Ben since he's sitting here, where we go, Ben's one of the best, he's a starter on the 2012 Black. I don't really need to see Ben again. I've seen him all year, right? And we feel confident that he's going to make the team again next year. The difference now is if we are combining age groups, it's not apples to apples anymore, right? It's this other group of kids merged with this group of kids, and we've never seen those two groups of kids together. And so now we, in a lot of ways, have to kind of reassess all of our players, which we've kind of started doing through conversation, coach evaluations, those kind of things. But now it's the merger of all those, which becomes a little more precarious. Placement of coaching staff, we talked about already, and then clear communication, which is a challenge, right? And we're trying to kind of kickstart that process with this here today. Next slide. So, couple details that I want to highlight in just kind of next steps, right? So, we actually talked about here at this setting doing an open mic and those kind of things, and felt like it's probably not the right environment to get into the minutia of your situation as it relates to this change. And so here's kind of some steps that we're planning on so that you kind of have a scope going forward. We're going to set up Zoom calls throughout February. You should be getting an email probably early next week with the schedule of those Zoom calls. The goal is to just have an open conversation around the birth year change. It's going to be focused at different age groups, but we're going to try to unpack some nuances, what to expect, answer questions that are a little bit more specific in those environments. There may even be some specific teams that we jump on as we work through the process and do on a team-by-team basis. One of the things that we would ask is that the conversations you have are with a director, so Andreas, Trevor, or myself. The reason for that is not that we don't trust our coaches. The reason is that the coaches only have the perspective of that team, right? And it's hard for them to understand the larger age group, the larger age group above, below, etc. And so if you would like to have a specific conversation, I actually just had a parent today ask me to set up one. We'd love to. We're happy to have the conversation, but please set it up with one of the three of us. In early March, we have earmarked a week. I'm hopeful to finalize the exact schedule here soon, but we're actually going to take a week of training and have teams train with the age grouping that they will be in next year, right? And so instead of Rory coming with the 2016 boys, he's going to come with the U11 for next year. We'll communicate kind of who goes where, etc. But one of the goals is that hopefully it eases some of the social pressure, right? Where, oh, I know that kid. Oh, I go to school with them. Oh, this team is actually better than I thought it was going to be, right? And hopefully make that a little bit more comfortable for kids as they enter the tryout process. We don't have tryout dates finalized exactly yet, but anticipate that they will be in April as they were last year. Last couple slides here, and I will stop talking. Couple pieces, right? So actually 2 years ago, this list was a long laundry list, and we needed board members and all these different roles. One of the things that we've done over the last couple of years is try to create kind of committees and smaller groups. So let's say you wanted to get more involved, but you couldn't commit fully to being on the board. We'd love for you to get involved. A couple of key categories here. Facilities, it's less about, Keith does a great job of kind of overall maintaining facilities and moving forward. There are tasks along the way of filling up sandbags or pulling nets off goals or those kind of things that we would love to have some assistance with, as well as if you have experience in project management, especially for some of the projects, like I said, getting water to Charlestown Park coming up. Capital campaign / fundraising is a space that we'd like to kind of step into and would love some people that are experienced there. Sponsorships, I already talked to a couple individuals several months ago, and I'm going to have some more concrete information on that. Grant writer, there are a number of grants out there, and we've started applying for some. I just actually applied for one this week, but we know there are more that we could be eligible for, but there's a certain fine art to writing grants, and so if you have experience in that, we'd love some help. Community involvement as well. If there's ways that you think, even though we had quite a list of ways that we've been involved, I would love to get to a place where all of our competitive teams are out in a soup kitchen, out doing different things within the community and trying to impact the community and have that experience. And so if there's other ways that you feel like the club could help impact the community, please reach out and let us know. We've literally entertained everything you could possibly imagine. Teams maintaining and pulling weeds from a community garden to everything else, and so we'd love to continue trying to do that to impact the community in the best way possible. Last pieces here as we wrap up. Would love to have you follow us on social media if you haven't yet. Next slide is just a thank you to Journey Church. They were our hosts 2 years ago and again tonight, which is great. It's a great professional space to sit and be able to present the information that I know parking was a little tricky today, but hopefully is accessible, and they've been great hosts yet again. I want to highlight as well our volunteers. Between board, rec coaches, snack shack, team managers, we have well over 200 people that volunteer at the organization every year. And so we quite literally would not be able to do all of what we just talked about without those individuals. And many of you are in the room, whether it's, again, team managers or board members or other individuals that have served in different ways. And so thank you, right? It allows us to make that connection. At the end of the day, the thing I tell our coaching staff all the time, and I think is true of the volunteers as well, is like, I can't be the one to go out and interact with every kid, right? I can't be the one to make sure that they have a great experience. It comes down to these individuals providing those touch points, making those connections at a grassroots level to really impact the community, and we're really grateful for that as well. I think that's my last slide. Maybe there's a thank you. Yeah. So again, thank you for coming. I'll just say a couple little pieces here. Again, if you would like more information, Birth Year Change, Trevor, Dre, and I will hang out a little bit up here and can answer some of that tonight, or we'll have the Zoom calls, individual meetings, etc. coming up. Board members are hang out up here as well. If you'd like to come up, chat, questions, those kind of things, would welcome that as well. And outside of that, I would just say thank you for being here, right? I appreciate the investment. I would love to in the future even fill this room, but we feel, as I said at the beginning, that it's important that we're transparent about what we're doing, right? You're spending your hard-earned money on our programming, and we want to show what we're trying to do to make it the best experience possible and to impact the community as an organization. So thank you for being here and investing the time to be here, and please reach out if you have any questions, want to volunteer, etc. going forward.